Listen, some of you cats were so eager to deny the fact of black jobs, you're about to talk yourself out of your black job. Now, what does that mean? So diversity, equity, and inclusion officers are supposed to actually fight for equity and inclusion. I'm a little bit conflicted about diversity, but equity and inclusion actually matters for a population that has been locked out, occupationally segregated, and needs to be included into the wealth of the nation that black people have, built and contributed to. So insofar as black people work black jobs, sanitation and CNAs, for example, those jobs should be compensated insofar as they're necessary, and they are necessary. The world doesn't function very well without sanitation officers, sanitation workers, or CNAs. Just ask, Martin Luther King talked about this in his later speeches, in the speeches 68, Showdown for Injustice, and the one right before that, right before he died. I mean, this is what he was marching for with the Memphis sanitation workers for, like the idea that there are black jobs and those jobs should be treated well, but also they should be included in, black people should be included in all the jobs instead of in America, not just be racially segregated through occupational segregation. So they need equity in the jobs that they're in, and they need inclusion in the jobs that they're not in. But you confuse all of that if you go on at some sort of tirade talking about there's no such thing as black jobs, right? So you need to admit the fact of black jobs, not be flattered out of admitting the fact that there are black jobs in order to get equity inclusion for black people who are working jobs. Right. But you'll get a lot of people in the media, especially because the media is not owned necessarily by black people, who have an interest in getting you to deny the fact of black jobs. They have an interest in getting you to say that, well, there are black NFL head coaches because look, the guy at Pittsburgh's, Mike Tomlin's black and he's a head coach. So being an NFL coach is a black job. No, being an NFL cornerback is a black job. Being an NFL defensive line is a black job. Being in the NFL and getting all those jobs that disproportionately get affected by CTE, those are black jobs. And we have to ask why that's the case. Why that we get the CTE jobs, but Andy Reid gets, the head coaching jobs. Right? And so you can't just talk about Doug Williams was a black quarterback, so quarterback's a black job. No, that's not how it works. You're arguing from anomalies in a way that actually confuses the problem. All for your little pride. All because you get gassed up to do so. All to pretend that black people are somewhere and in some station in both the NFL and in America that we're not. We're not. It's not a benign little story you tell yourself that there's no such thing as black jobs. Because that actually undermines both the organizing for better conditions on black jobs and getting black people into jobs that we've been locked out of, relatively locked out of. Right? So let's be honest. Instead of just be honest about the situation. Be honest about what a 44% home ownership rate means. Let's be honest about what equity and inclusion mean, because if you talk about there not being such a thing, or you let white liberals tell you that there's no such thing as black jobs, then there's no such need for equity and inclusion, right? So you've succeeded in actually giving artillery to arguments that will undermine black people working in good jobs, all because of your pride. And you will be talked into doing that because white liberals want you to say things like, well, there is no such thing as black job. Just like Joy-Ann Reid, paid for by MSNBC 4 years ago, wanted you to deny the fact of black poverty. Wanted you to deny that black people are poor. We have a 30% poverty rate, and 50% earn less than 50K. And less than 50K in the United States, you're not exactly winning. In most states, you're barely even living. But in no state are you necessarily winning at 50K. And that's half the population. Half the black people are bringing in 50K or less. And that's not real money. That's just not enough. That's not enough to thrive. So we confuse surviving barely with thriving. And then the other people who are actually thriving in America can talk about pronouns and shit and stuff, right? Because they're actually thriving. You got six-figure white families that don't have money problems, so they just talk about pronouns. That's what you can do when you don't have money problems. We have money problems, so we need to talk about money problems first. And then we can talk about pronouns. But the white people then pay you to talk about pronouns and call that a black issue, but not the fact that there are black jobs and those black jobs don't get paid well enough, or that they're not sufficiently diverse, and deny that as an issue. So that is a problem in the whole black economy, and I want to rectify that, and I try to rectify that every week with this show. So if you support what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, because I don't want to take on the kind of the sponsorships that other black people are taking on, including liquor. There are lots of ways black people get paid in this space, right? So you take on the liquor or the gambling sponsorships, or you take on the white liberal conservative talking points about how either conservative black people need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, or the liberal talking points about how black people have already arrived because we have Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, and you got a black picture of a black president, so we've already arrived, so we don't need actual, work to be done, and equity and inclusion legislation and policing to make sure that black people are fit, get in where we necessarily or don't necessarily fit in. We need to change the mold, right? So those are the ways black people in this kind of space get money, in the media space get money, telling you narratives that don't actually win. Or you can get money like Dr. Umar, who's telling you that the biggest black problem is interracial marriage, because that's the only that's the only way he can stay relevant, because he can't talk about black finances, the fact that we don't have black money, as if black people getting married will somehow increase black holdings, when they will just get divorced, right? So poor black people getting married, they'll end up just getting divorced, and that's not going to be great. So that's not going to be great either. So the secret isn't black people marrying other black people and then getting divorced, having kids and getting divorced because they can't make it work because of the stress of the money. The secret is black people having money. Black people having economic independence so that they could sustain the unions they have. So this idea that black people will somehow arrive, that black people only marry black people, is kind of ignorant of the economics of why black people are not staying married to black people. Or the baby mama economy. So we need to, and baby daddy economy, we need to actually get at the economic roots. And black people are not paid to get at the economic roots of our degradation. And so that's why I need you to go over to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. Because if you don't do that, the other black people in this media space will tell you that, one, black people need to pick themselves magically up by their bootstraps, when historically in the United States we were the boots. Two, black people have already arrived because of Obama. This is what the liberals will tell you, because of Obama and Kamala, who got, Kamala got to where she got. I've known about Kamala Harris, and I'm from Northern California, so I know about Kamala Harris since she was the one who went down on Willie Brown in my mind. That's how she got to where she's got. In my head, that's not, you can call that misogynist, or you can just call that someone who was around Northern California in the early 2000s who know how Willie Brown got down. And Willie Brown admitted it, and everyone kind of knew that's how she got put on. Right? She was no great electoral talent. She, went down on Willie Brown. So what we need to do, and then the third class that won't just tell you to pull up by the bootstraps, or that we've already arrived because you see Kamala and Barack. The third class will be like Umar, who will say well, the secret is, we just need to, we need to stop the interracial marriage. But that's another form of grifting that won't ever actually lead to black community or even family stability, because those black people who then marry within black people will then be poor and divorced and broken up and stressed out, because it won't actually get at the legislative problem, which is, how to secure black people property holding and assets so that they can sustain their families, and then with their families sustain their communities, right? So you got all these people who are paid to give you ultimately distractions about what black people need. When I'm telling you, like, and nobody's paid to tell you that, like, the problem is assets. We just don't have enough assets, and we never had enough assets because we started out in America in numbers as assets and were never actually justified as persons and property holders, merely just assets. Right. And so this is just what I'm here to do. And don't let people talk you out of, don't let people try to convince you that your situation isn't as bad as it is, or that it's necessarily your fault. And like right now, we're buying on credit what other people pay cash for. We are leasing what other people own outright. And that is not a way to live in America. We don't even own, we're leasing commercial property, what commercial property we have, where, you know, and the white guys own it. And that's a problem. Like, we're paying for a lifestyle. We go into debt for things that other people, to look like the kind of people who could pay for it outright. And that's not a strategy for clear communication and democracy. And that just ends up confusing people about the state of our community. It ends up confusing people for the state of our community, about the state of our community. And I don't want people confused. Right? So go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in, because I'm actually trying to not confuse people. And I don't want to put this behind a paywall, because if I put it behind a paywall, not enough people get to see it. And that's just not, I just don't think that's how you win. Right? So I trust on you people to appreciate the quality of truth I dispense every week, to go to www.funkyacademic.com, send this out to your friends and your family members, and sit around and talk about this and kick in, because all this costs. We're in America, everything costs, and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month for me to tell you that there are such things as black jobs. For example, CNA and sanitation workers, public transit in many cities, those are black jobs, and they should be compensated and respected as such, and black people should be in more jobs. And we used to be in construction. What does it mean that we're not in construction anymore? What does it mean that it got too expensive to lock us out? Right? So what does it mean? That and if there are no such thing as black jobs, that means we don't need diversity, equity, or inclusion, especially the equity and inclusion. And that's the danger of co-signing a narrative that's not true in order to make yourself feel good. It'll undermine the campaign for equity and inclusion. And I'm not a huge fan of the way affirmative action and DEI officers have worked out, but I am a fan of the quality of equity and inclusion legislation that needs to be passed into the future, and not supporting arguments that will undermine the quality of equity and inclusion legislation that needs to be supported for campaigns into the future. So go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com. Don't get sucked in to being so insecure that you lie about the state of your own degradation and poverty, or at least, even if you are doing well, don't lie about the community-wide degradation and poverty. And people say, like, well, you know, black people, there are 1.6 million black millionaires. Well, there are 47 million black people. That means 1 out of every 45 to 50 black people is a millionaire, which would be fine if being a millionaire in California just didn't mean that, like, you own a house. You barely own a house, so all of a sudden you're the reason black people aren't poor. Right? So that is... that's the state we're in. And if you didn't know that, 1 out of every 7 white families is a millionaire. You want us to come say hi to the people? Come say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
Hi, people. This is my daughter. Come say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
Hi, people. All right, I'm going to go hang out and figure out what's going on here. And I will see.
I think I know what's happening.
What's happening?
I think it's
open swim. Yeah. So we're going to hit the pool, because guess what? My black daughters swim. That's another show I should do. It turns out that black people don't swim at the levels that we think we are. I should do a whole show on on just why black people need to take the swimming business seriously. But we swim every day, and I will talk to you at another time. Peace. Also helps if there's a local pool by us.